Hello and welcome to another edition of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast, your home for all the latest Minnesota Lynx and WNBA news, analysis, and coverage. Thank you for tuning into another episode this week. I'm your host, Mitchell Hansen, and this week we take a deep dive into the Lynx offseason. With the offseason fully underway, the 2023 season behind us, we take a look back to the 2023 season, look ahead to the offseason, and look ahead to next season. And there's no better person, no better way to break down everything that the Lynx are trying to do, what they have done, what they hope to do, than the one and only Cheryl Reeve, who is the head coach and president of basketball operations of the Minnesota Lynx. Cheryl's always been great to myself, been great to talk to, and it was great chatting with her this week to kind of talk about, like I said, a little bit of everything when it comes to the Lynx, what took place during the 2023 season, what they're going to build on this offseason, what they might try to do this offseason, and then in return, what the team might, what the team wants to do in 2024. So it was a great sit down with Cheryl. I appreciate her taking some time to sit down and do the one-on-one interview with me. So without further ado, let's jump right into the podcast with the one and only Cheryl Reeve. Hey Cheryl, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Mitchell. It's a beautiful day here in Minneapolis.
It is. I'm knocking on every piece of wood I can find, but hopefully we don't have snow. I know a couple of years ago we already had snow on the ground at this time of the year, so I'm soaking it all in as we can before the white stuff starts flying.
Well, it's going to be a nice long fall. Beautiful Minneapolis.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you joining. I talked to you a little bit before we started recording here that just kind of wanted to take a look back at the year that was, and also look ahead to the off season, look ahead to next season. So I guess we'll just start with the 2023 season. I know at the beginning, when we had your media availability at the beginning of the year, you had talked about how this year was going to be focused on the long game, is focused on development. Throughout the year, did that change at all? Did that shift at all with anything that you saw, or maybe the results that took place? Or was that kind of the common theme throughout the year?
Well, I think that's probably what, as a staff, we're most pleased about during the course of this season. That we had stated goals, and sometimes when you get in the thick of things, those goals can shift, and you can maybe have reasons for wanting to do something different. But what we really were committed to, one of the first things coming out of the gates, we really talked about that we had the number 2 pick for a reason, and that player was going to get a tremendous opportunity with our organization, and that we were very, very committed to that as we inserted her into the starting lineup, and I think with the evolution of Dorka Juhas, largely as a result of the opportunity that presented itself because of some injuries that we had on the team. Mm-hmm. Maybe there was growth there that we didn't necessarily know that the opportunity would be as great as it was. And Dorka made an awful lot out of the opportunity that came her way. And so I think as we sat 40 minutes from, being in the semifinals, that's what we really reflected on, was that the excitement that we had, that we did this, we grew and evolved as a team with our stated goal of focusing on youth and focusing on the future and people that would be with us in the future. And that was one of the biggest success stories of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with all of that said, too, you just mentioned it. You guys ended up not only reaching the playoffs again or returning to the playoffs, but you took the only series in the first round to 3 games. You took a tough Connecticut team to 3 games. What were your thoughts overall on maybe how the second half of the year transpired and ultimately that playoff run, but also the whole year as in its totality?
Yeah, if I could just sort of walk through, the season. Mm-hmm. as we know, the beginning of our season, there was, I know as a staff, we felt a great deal of uncertainty around exactly who we were and what we were going to be good at. And so we knew it would be an evolution and that we were going to be focused on development. And if you think about being in training camp, as we came out of training camp and prepared for our first, few weeks of the season, we didn't have any idea up until the last day of training camp. So when the rosters were due, who exactly was going to be on the team. And so that was sort of uncharted territory for us. we typically resolve that a week in advance, and you have your last week to really drill down and prepare. And so we just, that opportunity, wasn't there for us this season, as we made some, decisions around the roster. And then as we hit the go button, and then the lights come on, we're playing games and sort of learning about the team on the fly. They're learning about each other. As a staff, we're learning about them and what are we good at? What are our strengths going to be? We had to make multiple pivots, in terms of, okay, this is what Fee is going to be good at. Let's do this with K-Mac, and so we just on the fly, we're kind of living in that space. And, as was documented, the early season losses sort of piled up. And, I think the thing for all of us that we, again, tried not to focus on results. What we were focused on is that, we felt like we were right there, that the team felt like that. I think as a staff, we felt like that, if we just kind of keep, staying the course and focus on, just developing and improving. And that means improving as a coaching staff in terms of what we were doing with the team, and obviously players getting more comfortable with each other. I think we lost, of those games that we lost, many of them were by 5 or less. And so, I think the success of the remainder of the season was largely where we sort of had shortcomings in the beginning, which was we won a lot of games that were decided by 5 or less after that slow start. So on the season, we ended up, really flipping that narrative and being a team that found success, probably, I would imagine, because of what we learned early in the season. And that's kind of what our team was about. I said this a lot, that though we were winless through the first 6 games, if you showed up to the gym and were around our team, you would never know it. And that was also really important to us, that, the players, in terms of the mood, and, I think as a coaching staff, just being very forward thinking and flushing, anything that didn't go our way, turn the page to the next day. And then, we had injuries, et cetera. Unfortunately, the position that we probably need the most stability, we had the most turnover in terms of injuries and people in and out, and that was the point guard position. And so I think despite all of that, the leadership and evolution of Nafisa Collier was just incredible to be around. She was just spectacular. And, I think there were a fair amount of people, prognosticators, when they looked at the projection for the Lynx. I don't know that they saw Nafisa being able to achieve that level and be able to carry our team the way that she did. Fee and I saw that as a possibility. And certainly our success hinged upon her development, to be an MVP candidate the way that she was, to be a top 5 player the way that she was. And it was fun to be around. I think that her teammates got a lot of energy off of her and the things that she was doing. And she's just a tremendous teammate and a tremendous superstar. And it just sort of lifted the play around her. And we just grew in our confidence and our belief in what was possible.
Yeah, kind of talking about Fee a little bit, that leads into my next question. I had her husband Alex on the podcast earlier this year, and he had mentioned that when they started training this offseason, working with Chuck Barta and just kind of checking in throughout the past offseason, or I guess right after she did give birth, they both didn't know if she was going to return to form. Not only did she return to form, but she took another step this year, it seemed like. What about her as a leader and as a player, what maybe stood out to you most about her this year and what she was able to do?
Well, I think as she always does, the grace with which she handled all that was thrown her way. You mentioned what Alex sort of discussed. And, when you go through that, people don't realize, when you're, a tremendous athlete, that, you also go through times of uncertainty yourself about what's going to be possible. It's uncharted territory for someone, had her first child and didn't really know what was next. And had some physical challenges as a result of it. And so her off season was not just, hey, let me get back in the gym and let me figure out how to be great again. A lot of her off season was figuring out how to feel healthy again.
Hmm.
and she had some obstacles there, and that coupled with being able to improve her game, and I just think the fortitude and the resilience that it takes to do that in a short period of time. We're talking about a 5-month window, and honestly, I said that our season sort of turned when Fee left the space of maybe being unsure of how good she is to deciding, like, I put this time in, this preparation in, and I'm a good player. And
Hmm.
I said when she started acting like our best player, then everything changed for our team. And she was spectacular. And the number of 30-point games that she had, and it just didn't matter. I mean, we saw in game 3 of our series with Connecticut where they were double and triple teaming her, and she still, I believe, had 29 on them, and a very good defensive team. And so I think that was just sort of an exclamation point on her incredible season and the ways in which that she challenges a defense. And I think one of the greatest wins in my time, so 14 seasons, and we had a lot of great series wins along the way on this path. Um, the game 2 win in Connecticut is right up there with some of my favorite all time wins. What we did in Connecticut, and the role that Fee played in that. Again, her belief in herself and her teammates and her will, and she just has an unflappable way about her that she doesn't really ever get sped up too much. She doesn't really ever get too high, too low, and that's just a gift. And that's why she was such a great leader for us this season. And frankly, she took another step from a leadership standpoint. She really had to put herself in spaces that maybe she hadn't been in before, or maybe that were occupied by somebody else, and that was to be very clearly our best player. And don't you don't defer to someone because maybe you missed your first 3 or 4 shots. That's not how an MVP candidate conducts themselves. They conduct themselves that, look, this is a privilege, and I'm good enough to know that on most nights that this is going to be great for our team. There are going to be some nights that it's not going to happen the way that you want it. You may not feel as great as maybe you did the last 5 games, but your role doesn't change. You can't then defer the leadership that it takes to say, okay, most nights it's going to feel good, and I'm going to be able to help our team be successful. But there are going to be the occasions that maybe I was the reason why we weren't successful because I didn't perform at a high enough level. That was game 1 against Connecticut in that series. And so to see her turn around in game 2 and correct, and we looked at some film together, and just some just very basic conversation, and she turned around. So I think that that playoff series was the FISA in a nutshell on the season from a leadership standpoint.
Hmm. Yeah, you also talk about stepping up, and 2 players in particular that stepped into bigger roles this year were the rookies that we were talking about earlier. I mean, just talking about, or looking at them in the season that they had. I mean, you mentioned Diamond being inserted into the starting lineup since day one, but maybe Dorka Juhas taking on a bigger role initially. What do you think about them and that what they were able to do in their rookie seasons?
Well, we said this to them a lot, in front of the team. I just thought that they were, such good rookies for us in that they accepted the challenges. Look, they knew that this league was hard. They didn't come in here and think, hey, I'm great, and I'm going to be better than everybody in the league, and they come in with the right mindset. They come in understanding how great the league is and what they were going to have to do to try to find success. And they had just ups and downs galore, right? Just like a rookie would. But the opportunities that they had in difficult situations, for example, with Diamond and Dorka, but we were really a little bit more intentional with Diamond to say, look, we know she's not where she needs to be defensively. That was something coming out of college. We knew not a lot of man to man was played with her in college. She had some real challenges there, And you look at some of the matchups that we had, particularly to start the season, we put her on team's best players on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And while we knew that maybe that matchup wasn't maybe in the short term going to be the best for us, we really felt like it was our doing our due diligence to say, let her learn, let her fail, let her learn and get the feeling, not a coach telling her that, hey, and you're sitting on the bench over here and go, hey, you're sitting on the bench because we don't think you can do XYZ. It's a lot easier to put that player on the court and go, okay, now do you see what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's easier for them to envision what it feels like and the work necessary to improve. And so we did that with Diamond from day one, and I thought that her growth, that was really fun to see. Some of the challenges, that she would really started to embrace, and she's a very, very competitive person and doesn't want to fail in anything, not even for a small drill. And those are signs of a really good player. And I think Dorka was probably a little bit more of a revelation in that we put her on a variety of skilled post players. And so that ranged anywhere from the sizable post players, obviously, because she is 6'5", and can play big. So she had your BGs, your Aaliyah Boston types. She was phenomenal on the matchup with Nneka Ogwumike, who poses different skill set than maybe those two bigs. And then guarding Brianna Stewart or a Dewana Bonner, and just seeing what you could do defensively with her was a bit of a revelation for us, and the ways that we could use her. You could switch. Dorka was very comfortable in that situation, and just within a game, we had so much fun with Dorka, and there were times when she would walk out of a timeout, and I would just giggle because of what we were doing to her, saying, okay, in the first 5 minutes is what you're going to do. And then, by the time we get to the third quarter and she's like, what? Now you want me to do what? And so whatever we gave her, she did. We said, okay, we're gonna play it this way this time. Now you're gonna play the pick and roll like this. Now you're gonna play it this way on her, but different on her. And I know she was drained by season then, but that was probably for the coaching staff. That was refreshing to see that you could put a player, and her maturity, her emotional maturity is really high. Dorcas is, and her preparation. She was another one that really had this never too high, never too low, just a really quiet confidence, and just a really healthy, I think, season for her, where she too sort of felt like she now has understanding of what she needs to work on because she experienced it firsthand. And so again, positives for our season is, we found a certain level of success while growing with two of our rookies.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything that maybe it was the performances of the rookies, maybe his feet taking another step, whatever it may be? Were there any surprises for you that you maybe learned throughout the year that you didn't expect to happen at the beginning of the year?
With the rookies or with the team?
Just with anybody with the team, whether it's individually wise or even the team at large.
I would say that not surprised, but happy that we could. McBride is the person, probably the one
Mm-hmm.
you probably wouldn't expect me to talk about because she's the 30-year-old vet. But she was the one that we thought that her first season with us was a really solid season where she kind of got in and learned, and our team was really good. We finished third and et cetera, and we lost in a single elimination game. 2022 was a lot harder for us as a team, and I think in particular for McBride. And I think the year 3 of her 3-year contract, what we saw from her is exactly what we needed to see, which was, I just thought she grew tremendously from a leadership standpoint, and the ways in which she was giving. And I'll tell you what, it was a big help to Fee, to have someone that, I say this, she's twice the veteran that Fee is. She's been in the league twice as long as Fee. And so she was helpful to Fee, maybe in ways that nobody else in the team could be, because we had so much youth or inexperience on the big stage. And so K-Mac has been through it all. She's been in playoff series and been on a great team. And she's also been on the other side of things. And she was in San Antonio when when that team struggled in her first 2 years as a young player. So her range of experiences were really valuable to this team. And I didn't necessarily mark that down as a thing that we were going to be, something we could count on. So I was really pleased and to see that she was willing, to give of herself in that way. Because guess what? There's times when maybe you go, I would like to be competing for a championship. I'd like to be on a team that, is a contender. And going into the season, we clearly were not a contender. I don't think anybody that was in our camp said, yep, that we're definitely top two. And we didn't know what we could be. And so I think for someone like Kayla McBride, to embrace where her feet were, and the team that she's with, and to give of herself in the ways that she did, because a lot of times veterans can kind of see the young players as the same way that maybe an old dog sees a puppy, and it's annoying, and you wish that they would learn a little faster, wish they'd go away sometimes, the things that you see. And she just stood in it every second, and just, I think, grew as a person. And I think she'll tell you that. And so I'd say that's probably where I would put that in terms of something that we were hoping she was capable of. And again, I thought a big contributor to our success.
Yeah, a lot of people always, talk about K-Mac and what she can do offensively. Obviously, that goes without mentioning, her ability on offense. But the thing, you even talked about it throughout the year of her, being put on the other team's best player most of the time and doing a nice job in shutting them down. I think that's something too that maybe didn't, maybe not internally didn't go, unnoticed, but externally, maybe that's something that people didn't realize she could do, and she did a great job in that this year, which I think that two-way play from her was really, really a nice development that took place throughout the year.
Yeah, I think she did that for us in 2021. Probably we didn't talk about it as much, but I think she was a revelation for us in 2021. I don't necessarily know that she came here with the cloud of people going, "Oh yeah, she's a really good defender." It's not that she wasn't, but I think it was sort of understated. 2022, we didn't get that level of play from K-Mac and a lot of the others, and so I thought K-Mac got back to the defender and the prideful player that she is on that end of the floor. And she, I think she recognized how much the team needed her, just in terms of, again, just seeing someone like Fee. You want to play with and for Fee, and so I thought she helped bring that out of K-Mac as well. And K-Mac just has great confidence. There are certain matchups that she really enjoys, and they're the harder ones, and they're not necessarily the small forward spot where Diamond would be. There's a lot of good perimeter players in this league, and there were some matchups that she just was really special, and she really committed to and has years of experience in doing. And I thought it was not surprising to us that she was doing that. We were glad that she got back to doing that like she did for us a little more in 2021.
I remember there was a moment during the year when it was after so there was a back-to-back, two straight back-to-backs against Seattle and Dallas. And I know after the first Seattle game, it was a home game. And I remember somebody asked her post-game about, facing Jewell Loyd and Enrique in back-to-back. And before they even finished the question, she goes, Jewell, Enrique. And that's just K-Mac. She was ready for it. She embraced the challenge. And that's something that speaks volumes too, that she is as excited to match up against them as we are to watch it, I guess.
Yeah, and you're not going to be successful every time against those two players that you mentioned, but
right.
But the game in Seattle, the overtime game, it was K-Mac's play, that defensively, that the little things that help you win a game, that aren't little, and that we hope that we have players that do these things, but just the inbound pass that Seattle was trying to make on their final possession after we had just scored, after Fee had just hit her shot. We had to get a stop, and that if they get the ball in bounds, and you have to live with whether or not Jewell Loyd makes one of those hard shots that she's really good at, and to break up the play to where they created a little bit of miscommunication, because of her that's the epitome of what K-Mac brings and understands, that maybe her physical gifts are not going to be imposing to people. Her positioning, her quick hands, her will, that sort of thing. That's, is something that was healthy for our team.
Mm-hmm. Kind of shifting focus now, obviously with the off season underway. What are your hopes, I guess, for this off season, and kind of that period leading up to next year?
Yeah, I mean, we're still early in the off season, but
Mm-hmm.
we have, certainly, had some discussions as a staff, really throughout the season as you go through it, and you kind of go, okay, it's as you go into game 3 against Connecticut, and just not having quite enough firepower to get over the hump in that game. I mean, Connecticut's obviously a very good team and have been for years. I believe that's their 5th straight semifinals that they advanced
Mm-hmm.
to, which was pretty impressive. And in order for us to win, we needed another player that could help. I mean, just that game would have been great to have a second player, as we saw in game 2, where
Mm-hmm.
McBride and Collier, whenever they played great, we were successful. And McBride was having a harder time against Rebecca Allen. They changed the matchup. It was Tiffany Hayes on her. They moved her off. They put Allen. Allen was just a little bit different for K-Mac, and it became a little bit harder for her to get shots. And when she did, they just didn't fall. We needed someone else to be able to score the ball. I mean, that's an understatement, right? If you were at the game,
Mm-hmm.
that was an understatement.
Right.
If he was trying to do it by herself, and so I think that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, there's certainly, you could drill down and say, there's a bunch of things we want to get better at, but we want to kind of stay the course of the path that we committed to last off season, which we talked about. There were some free agents that we were involved with. We didn't have any, grand illusions that we would be landing, Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones or Courtney Vandersloot. There was a free agent of that group that we felt good about because of the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when those three decided to play together, then that's obviously kind of took us out of it. But when that was decided for us, when our direction was decided for us, we sort of said that, look, hey, if you get these free agents, okay, you know what you're doing. If you don't, you know what you're doing. So if you don't get these free agents, you're locked in and you're focused on being forward thinking and having some young players that you now focus on developing. And so that's where we're at as we go into this offseason, is that we need Diamond Miller and Dorka Juhas to improve. And so our focus is on how we can help them improve the information that we've given them, the ways that we'll support them. That will be big for us. As we also know, we will try to, have a player in the draft that can be a part of what we're doing. That will be important to us. We can't obviously determine just yet who's in the draft to know how deep it is or how deep it's not. And so, but the draft is certainly going to be pivotal for us. So we're going to work really, really hard on that. And then free agency is, something we will look at. I'll just tell you, we won't overreach. We won't put ourselves in a situation that, where you look at and go, okay, it's a stopgap. Why'd you do that? There's probably one position that we would consider when we say a stopgap, meaning, maybe it's somebody that is going to be with you for a year or two, but maybe we feel like it's a necessity. But again, making sure that we don't overreach financially, that will be a priority for us. But by and large, we really want to focus on, players that will be a part of the future. As you can see, a vision over the next 3 to 5 seasons. What we can grow into, and there's, I don't think any need for me to talk about free agent names, but
Mm-hmm.
I think for us more positionally, we have certainly a focus that will be probably obvious to anyone that's watched our team.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to that, you kind of talked about, with the development of the rookies, that kind of leads into my next question of what, is that maybe the biggest factor that you're looking forward to, transpiring this off season, but, leading up to the time you get the team back together for training camp, or what is maybe some key factors that you're kind of watching this off season?
We're just watching a lot of players, and
Hmm.
again, our own players,
Yep.
and trying to be in communication with them as they've started their off-season play, or if they're not overseas, then certainly the ways that we can support them in their their growth from a sports performance standpoint. Whether it's whether they're taking care of their bodies, how they're going to grow their bodies and be able to be different than what they were the year before. So certainly resources that way, and then the skill development, and making sure that, like, I thought Diamond Miller really improved as a shooter throughout the course of her rookie season. And Diamond was really receptive to, sort of tweaking her form and her mechanics and her shot, and made a subtle adjustment. And I think what you look at is, go, can you just make incremental progress? You can't. And I told both of the young players, the rookies, that this isn't about, yeah, there's probably 10 or 12 things you could say, I need to be better in this. But you can't look at it that way in your first off season. You have to pick one or two things, and you've got to make real strides in those areas. And then year after that, you do the same thing. And so you see this as an evolution over time. The player that you are after year five should be, as you sort of outlined, year one, year two, year three. By the time you get to year five, you're much closer to the player you want to be. Well, you look at Nafisa Collier; she's that player,
Hmm.
and so now she's in the next 5 years of her career. And what does she want to do next? Well, now it's about her body. It's about what she wants to do, strength wise, agility wise, skill wise. She's a great player. Yeah, she's going to add some, more consistent shooting, or maybe some ball handling and that basic stuff. But you look at where Diamond is and where Fee is, and so Diamond and Dorka, their starting place, just get better at one or two things. And for Diamond, through the course of her rookie season, the three ball went from percentage in the 20 percentile to her last 15 games, she shot 35%. I believe her last 7 games was in the range of 40% from three. And it was a subtle adjustment that she made. And so her willingness to do those things, her willingness to understand, I mean, she very quickly kind of figured out that, okay, look, I'm a starter. So therefore, I'm a part of a team's scouting report. This isn't like the normal rookie thing where you're coming off the bench and nobody knows who the hell you are or what you do. And so you find success anyway. Well,
Hmm.
no, you're a part of the scouting report, and they know you like to go to the basket. They have you're on video. You're a focal point. So now you got to figure out, okay, I can't get to the basket like I like to do, or if I do get to the basket, I got to finish differently. I can't, these wide, low finishes that I did in college with great success, and I've done for most of my life. I can't do that in the pros, and
Hmm.
that's really what being a professional is about. Is you're good enough to be here, but these are the best of the best. And so now you got to figure out, okay, I still am going to go to the basket, but now I got my finishes. They got to be much higher. I got to reach for the rim in my finishes. And the moments that she did that, she was really good, and she got to the foul line or finished as well. And so those two things were, I thought, really big for her as she started to, go down the path of improvement. So she'll continue to work on that. Both Diamond and Dorka, we've talked about, defensively what they need to be able to be, particularly with Diamond, a focus, and Dorka has some stated goals in terms of her improvement offensively. She would like to be able to evolve a little bit more with some touches on the post, which we didn't do any of. So hopefully we'll find some ways, because I mean, you have Dewana Bonner guarding her, in the playoffs. Well, that reminded me of Becky Hammon guarding Maya Moore in her rookie season,
Hmm.
where we said, Maya Moore, that can never happen again. You can never let Dewana Bonner or Becky Hammon guard you. And so, because they knew that Maya wasn't going to go to the block and it wasn't going to be a good space. Well, look what Maya Moore became. She became a great, post up player and had her moves. And so that same thing, hopefully for Dorka, where you go, okay, I can never let that happen again. Where, teams played me with a perimeter player so that they could put a post player, a different matchup onto Fee. Well, she wants to be more valuable in that way. And, I certainly have my wishes, or our staff has our wishes with regard to really every player on the team becoming a little bit better shooting the basketball. Dorka being able to do that at her position would be incredibly valuable to us.
Hmm. I know you just mentioned, and obviously the off season is still in its, it's very early yet. But looking ahead to 2024, there's a lot to transpire before then. But ultimately, what do you hope this team is able to accomplish next season?
Well, that's hard to know. I mean,
Hmm.
what I hope is that we continue to improve.
Hmm.
Look at the team we were this year, and that being said, I mean, we're a really interesting team analytically. Where I think analytics say we won more games than what we should have. And so maybe there was a little bit of luck involved, but I also felt like there was a little bit of bad luck in the first 6 games. So I thought we were an interesting case, I think, analytically, and which numbers do we believe? And so we'll go into next season with some cautious optimism, in that we know that we every year that you're together, you can't be the same as you were the year before. You've got to be better, and so we'll certainly have that as a mindset. Whether it was the same players coming back, you've got to be better as a unit, or if you've made additions to your team, the players that are returning, they've got to make their strides and improvement. You'd have to work in, players that maybe weren't a part of the system that now become a part of it. Just be on a path of growth. I think that's what the thing that we're most committed to, and it's hard to know what that means because you don't know what happens around you with regard to improvement of other teams.
Hmm.
But for us, we're trying to focus on ourselves and a path that we want to be on, a patient path of continual improvement.
Well, Cheryl, I really appreciate you taking some time and joining to jump on the podcast to talk about everything. And I wish you best of luck this off season, and I'll definitely see you around once the new season approaches.
Thanks, Mitchell. Always
All
great
right.
to talk to you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you once again to Cheryl for joining the podcast this week. As I mentioned before, the interview with Cheryl, it's always great sitting down and chatting with her. She's always so gracious with her time, answers the questions, as well as she does during the season, and she always takes the time, and she's very gracious with the time that she does take to interview. So I appreciate everything that she provided for the podcast, provided during that interview. And continues to provide myself and others who want to cover this team and cover this league. So thank you once again to Cheryl. I also want to give a shout out to Jeremy Rushing for producing this podcast every week, as I do most weeks, or I guess every week. Jeremy does a great job in the back end of producing this podcast. As I always say, he always makes me sound less crazy than I might be. So I appreciate Jeremy and all he does for this podcast. And I also want to give an update about our podcast. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. I just want to give a little bit of a scheduling update. We posted this on social media over the last week, but with the off-season underway, we are going to be shifting the podcast format for the off-season months, or at least through the rest of this calendar year. We'll see what happens when free agency starts up. But starting November, we're going to be posting on a monthly basis instead of a weekly basis. So that'll for sure be November, December. We'll see about January. Like I said, once free agency picks back up, we will kind of adjust at that time. And even though we're going to be doing it on a monthly basis, that doesn't mean that there won't be emergency podcasts. Something happens that we need to talk about, I will definitely be talking about that. I'll be jumping on the podcast and giving that additional podcast. So I just want to give an update on that. Like I said, don't worry, we're not going anywhere. Once activities start to ramp up again, we'll start to do it on a weekly basis as we did all year long. But as things kind of slow down, we're going to transition from a weekly to a monthly podcast for at least the months of November and December, and possibly January as well. But more updates on that to come. I will make sure that you guys know first about what's going on with the podcast, when it'll start back up on a weekly basis, and so on. So one other way you can get a lot of that news before anybody else, I let my patrons know last week of the change in the format, as well as have been providing them with exclusive stories all off season long, is go check out our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/hitting the hardwood. There's, well, like I said, you'll get a lot of information before anybody else. You'll get information that other people don't get, that I don't release to the public, or that I don't write in any other written content or any other website. You'll get exclusive stories. You'll get exclusive information. You'll get early access to podcasts. You'll get bonus content. You'll get, you'll have the ability to send me feedback. You get discounts at our Hitting the Hardwood store. You get a lot of different perks with just becoming a patron. So go check that out, patreon.com/Hitting the Hardwood. That is where you'll get a lot of that information. You can find a 7-day free trial, or you can try a 7-day free trial. If you like that, then consider maybe, purchasing a membership. And anything you can do, I definitely appreciate. And it helps with ensuring longevity of this podcast, making sure that, I don't ask for much, but just a little bit of support to this podcast will help with the time and the efforts that is necessary to make it a good podcast and make it good coverage. So I appreciate anything you can do, anything you can contribute. And visit that and more at our Patreon page, patreon.com/Hitting the Hardwood. With that said, I want to thank you all for listening, as you do all year long, as you have every week throughout the year. Like I said, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to be shifting to a monthly basis. I want to give a shout out to our partners in Homage and Better Edge, as I always do, for their support. I want to give a shout out to all of you listeners for your support all year long. And it's been, like I said a couple weeks ago, this is probably my favorite year covering this team and doing what I do, just because of the different forms of content I've been able to do and the ways I've been able to push it out. So that's thanks to you. That's thanks to everybody who listens every week. That's thanks to people who interact with me on Twitter. Check out our Patreon page, everything in between. It's because of you guys that this is possible. So I appreciate everything that you do. And as I said, we'll be starting up here on a monthly basis. We'll start at the beginning of the month, probably each. I'm still planning to, as of now, doing the first Tuesday of each month. So be on the lookout for that. Well, it'll be just that week will be the same format as we have, on a weekly basis throughout the year. Podcast will come out on a Tuesday, and then we just we'll do that, the first Tuesday of every month. So. With that said, that means we're going to be talking to you next week. November 7th, we'll have a podcast. It's crazy to think it's already November, but we're already there, and November 7th will be the first podcast. So that'll be coming up here shortly, and I'm excited about the guests that we have on that podcast as well. So we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a great week.